Hi guys, Squirrel here, and welcome to another episode of This May Contain Nuts. Now, it seems you're quite enjoying the This May Contain Nuts series, which is great. I've got some more questions that came out of the first episode, but I can already see that you're asking questions out of the second episode. And please do feel free to ask some more questions, keep them going. If we're going to keep this series going, I need more questions. Look in the video description and it tells you exactly how to ask a question on Twitter. Once again, please do not @mention me in the question, it just floods my mentions timeline. Just ask your question with the tag #TMCN. That's all you need to do. We are in Košice in Slovakia, and we're doing a delivery for DHL today. I'm in my Scania 4. The Scania 4 is in the mod spreadsheet. And I've got the Frosty mod on, as you can see. It's all very cold and frosty. It looks beautiful. I thought we'd do it for a change. It looks fantastic, I have to say. And this, you should have seen the Frosty mod, hopefully, from a mod review I did with the seat called Changing Seasons, or Season Change. I can't remember the name of it now. But yeah, it's in the mod spreadsheet as ever. It's under the environmental section. So let's crack on. Let's start this up, and we'll put the side lights on, which turns on the internal lighting on this thing. And yeah, we're going to get over here and pick up our trailer. Like I say, we're doing a delivery for DHL, so we've got the DHL skin on the truck, and we've got a DHL skin on the trailer. We are heading up to Pécs in Hungary. Once again, I'm not sure how you pronounce Pécs. I think it's Piek or something weird. But I don't speak their native tongue. I'm English, so we kind of have a weird way of saying things. Well, we do to Eastern Europeans anyway. They always laugh at the way we pronounce things. And I'm going to rattle off some questions as well, so I'm going to get through some questions. Notice the indicator on the Scania 4. When you indicate left or right, it actually illuminates both blinkers. See that? Left or right. Apparently that's what it used to do on the older trucks. They never actually distinguished between left and right on the dash. Which I find interesting, and I don't know why. There must have been a technical reason for it. Maybe it was too difficult to do at the time, but certainly modern trucks, you know, don't do that. Come on, lights. Let's have a nice little change to green. Thank you very much. We'll take that. Hopefully we can get through this one. Awesome. Looks like the delivery was the pickup point is just out of town here. I don't think it's very far. I've got the sat nav on the bar on the upright, as you can see. This is an older truck, the Scania 4, so there is no kind of built-in sat-nav that you could have back then, so you kind of have to have it almost as a TomTom add-on, which is absolutely fine. But let's have a quick look at the truck, just in case you've not seen it. Yeah, it's quite a nice looker. Those tyres there that you're seeing are a 50k add-on. 50k wheels, and then you can get a 50k add-on so that you can have painted tyres. You can actually have outlined lettering or painted lettering, or you can have a white wall. You basically get 3 mods in the pack and you just enable one of them. But I quite like the white lettering. And yes, once again, that's in the mod spreadsheet. It's all in the mod spreadsheet. In case you're wondering, that's where I put all of my mods. Strange pickup point for a DHL trailer, but hey, what do I know? Looks like a factory, like a gasworks or something. As I said in the Frosty mod, there are no physics changes, so although the roads look, you know, icy and stuff, they actually behave like normal roads. Which I actually prefer, because my experience of using physics mods, the winter ones, they make things slippy, but due to sort of limitations in the game, if you've got heavy trailers and you go on that kind of physics pack, it's an absolute disaster. It's okay with lightweight stuff, but once you start taking on any heavier, oversized loads, the game kind of struggles to handle the physics anyway, particularly on things like 6x4 chassis. You start getting an understeer effect. But if you then add physics changes onto the friction of the road, you're not going to have a good day. You're gonna get stuck. There are places on the maps where you just won't be able to move, and you'll slip uphill and all that kind of thing. So I kind of like having a Frosty mod that doesn't mess about with the physics. Right, here we go. This is the W Duraplate 06 DHL, 23 tons, a quite heavy trailer. I'm not sure what's in here. But we're going to Pécs in Hungary. So let's take that. We'll get on our way. Whoop. Wrong gear completely. We'll get on our way, start asking some questions. This should look the biz actually. DHL skins all round. It's going to look quite nice. I think we'll go at it over here. I've actually delivered things into this particular loading bay with full-on American trucks and oversized loads, and you know, the tolerances are so small. I've been backwards and forwards towards that building. I've been right up against those containers, trying to get as much space as I can to load it. Oh, here we go. Here's your physics problem straight away, look. Do you see what I mean? Heavy trailer, 6x4, look at that. There you go. That's what I'm talking about, and that's without any physics changes. I'm going to have to change up this truck and go drop back to a 4x2 just to get rid of those physics effects. I shall be back shortly. Right, okay, sorry about that. We are back. As you can see, I've switched out the chassis. We've now got a 4x2. And straight away, you'll see the difference. Watch this. So, turns, absolutely no problem at all. I do not understand the reasoning for this. It is just a known thing about the game. That was actually a 6x4 tag lift I think I had previously, but it does the same thing on 6x4s. The 4x2 you don't have any problems with. I honestly can't answer it. I don't know what the problem is, but all I know is 4x2 on a heavier load works absolutely fine. 6x4 combinations, you get the problems with the understeer to the point where either, as you saw then, you can't even turn, or just when you put the power down you get quite a bit of understeer, and the heavier the load, the worse it gets. Anyway, with that little problem surmounted, let's carry on. We are going right here. The first question of this episode comes from Ayuan, I think it's how you say your name. Ayuan G. It's at Ayuan Grundy, and it was on October the 11th, and he said, "Hi Paul, throughout the week how long do you take to edit vids, and does it get tedious in any way?" Now I sort of read this question and I thought, you know what, that's quite an interesting question to answer, because a lot of people will say to you they don't understand, you know, YouTube is not difficult, is it? I mean, it's just videos, you just edit them. Some YouTubers put out 4 videos a day. Why can't you put out 1 video a day? There are many reasons why I can't personally do that at the moment, and why I'm struggling to do that. But part of the reason is because, well, I put quite a bit of effort into my videos. I don't just throw them out. And to answer your question, Ewan, assume that's how we say your name. Basically, a lot of it is down to the kind of game as well. Take Eurotruck, okay? A Eurotruck video will take a reasonable amount of work. Not a massive amount, but a reasonable amount. I'll record the whole thing, usually in one sitting, one take. I'll bring it into the editor. I'll sort of trim out the start and the end, line the audio tracks up, because if you do multi-track audio recording like I do, then you've got, you know, your video, you've got your game audio, you've got your commentary, as in me, which is another audio track completely. And then if you're playing the kind of game that you're playing with other people, you'll also have a TeamSpeak audio track as well. And the reason for doing multi-track recordings is very simple. It means that when you get into the editing phase, you can play around with the audio levels, because they're all separate. If they all get squished into one track, you can't do anything with it. So I could, for example, if I was playing with somebody else, I could edit out them swearing, just take it out, you wouldn't even know they said it. If the game audio is too loud, which it often is, I can bring it down. I can boost or compress my commentary voice. So in kind of editing, there's more work to do, where you kind of put the pieces together of your recording. And, you know, you might have to do some brightness and contrast color corrections on the video. I do anyway, because I like to have the best I can. Again, a lot of people don't do this, but I do. And then you mess about with the audio. Then you've got to edit it up, splice it. With Eurotruck, it's not so bad. I might have to take out things that, you know, maybe went wrong at some point, but on the whole, Euro Truck doesn't take a massive amount of editing to do. Other games, for example, Construction Sim is another one where it may not take a massive amount of editing, unless I just find that the session was a bit dull and I'll just not use it at all, but that's the worst that can happen. Project Cars can be a pain because of the unpredictable nature of the AI. Project Cars can actually take a long time to record, never mind edit. Just because you might have a couple of races that you're playing and then the AI will do something absolutely dumb and just send you flying into the wall, and that's it. It's like video over. I mean, nobody wants to watch a video of you doing 10 laps in a race and on lap 2 the AI puts you into the wall and you finish last. It's just not entertaining to watch. And even then, when you bring it in, you've got editing to do in order to kind of just get it down into a good race where you've got something good. What else have we got? So, yeah, I mean, basically what I'm trying to say is, and also it depends on what kind of tools you're using to record. So, I may use Shadow Play, or I may use DxTree, or I'll use my AVerMedia capture card. Some games don't capture well. It's weird. Some games don't want to be captured by DxTree. Some games don't want to be captured by Shadow Play. Assetto Corsa was notorious for that. For FSX and P3D and X-Plane, again, they're kind of a bit weird about it. The AVerMedia capture card captures the signal output. So it captures what comes out the video card and goes to the monitor. So that will capture anything. But the downside is you also have to record the audio separately in a multi-track audio recorder, and then in the editing stage bring it all in and combine it. It's all very kind of technical, and it takes a while to learn how to do well, and it takes time to do. And I would say that, you know, during my editing and post-production phase, I probably put in more effort than the average YouTuber, put it that way. But hopefully the results show. Hopefully, you know, you seeing and watching and listening to good quality video. Particularly, you know, the audio, which I put a large emphasis on getting that right. But that's it. I would never say it's tedious. It can be annoying, it can be time-consuming, but it's what I choose to do, so it's not actually something that's just tedious. It's just frustrating sometimes would be the word. What can be really annoying is sometimes the audio will get out of sync. Like, for example, there was a bug in Shadow Play not long ago, and you would record something for like you wouldn't notice it on a 1-minute video, but if you do a 45-minute video like what I do, what you notice is the audio goes out of step with the video. And it was a bug in Shadow Play, and it ruined so many videos. It was impossible to correct it back. So there are, you know, pitfalls in doing YouTubing, because things can and do go wrong on a technical level and just inside the game, you know. So I hope that answers your question, Ewan. Let's get on with question number 2. Question number 2 comes from Butler Hives. At Butler Hives is his Twitter name, and he says, Squirrel, did you game a lot as a kid, and what did your parents think of that? Now, I also coupled this one up with a similar question from Nathan Parks, at Nath Musician, and he says, hi Squirrel, you being a parent, what do you think of playing games for a living and constantly playing games? My parents are against it. So both of those questions are kind of a similar vein. They're both referring to me as a parent, what I think of my children playing games, what their parents think of them playing games, and what's my view on the aspect of playing games. Now, straight up, I'm going to say to you that I would not be sitting here right now doing this if it wasn't for my parents pretty much allowing me and encouraging me to use computers, and they had no problems at all with me playing computer games. They pretty much let me do what I wanted when it comes to computer games, and some parents may not agree with that position. In fact, I know that some parents don't agree with that position, but that's the view that my parents took. And they, you know, right from my very first home computer, which was a ZX Spectrum. The ZX Spectrum was the first computer I actually owned properly. I'd used them before then. I'd used my mates over the road had a Commodore VIC-20, but I owned a ZX Spectrum, 48K in case you're wondering. 48K of memory, just fantastic. And I basically spent, you know, ridiculous amounts of time on my computer. But even before then, even before I got the ZX Spectrum, and before kind of home computing properly kicked off, I would spend my money down at the arcades. I think I got something like £2 pocket money, and it cost something like 8p to get the bus. And I used to get the bus from Billinge, where I lived. You probably won't know this, if you know anything about the UK, you probably know where Liverpool is or Manchester is. You may know where St Helens is, and then just kind of north of St Helens is Billinge and Wigan, and in between Billinge and Wigan is a very small village called Orrell. And Orrell used to have a shop that had a few arcade machines in it. This was before kind of properly arcades, actual dedicated arcades came about. And I would get on the bus with my mate on a Saturday morning. We'd get the bus up to Orrell, and we'd go in there and we would play Missile Command or Phoenix, one of the classic arcade games. And we would pretty much just pour all of our 10p pieces in it until we had none less, and then we'd get the bus home. And that's what we did. But I'll tell you something, back then, because games cost you money, you had to physically put money in, and when you ran out of money, it was game over. You had to get good at games. If you didn't get good at games, you didn't get to stay in them very long. So you had to get pretty good pretty quick. And that's pretty much what I did. But then when I got a ZX Spectrum, I did more than just games. Like, I started off doing what everybody does. They start to load games, they play it, they have fun. And then, you pick up the manual. The manual came with Spectrum Basic, and you kind of start messing about with a better Spectrum Basic. We used to buy magazines back then. They would have printed copies of code for you to try out, and that's how you learn. And I would start off coding, and Basic was the first language I learned. I went on to Z80 from that, Z80 assembly language, and then moved on to C and C++ and Pascal when I went to university. Back then you used to have sort of BBC programs that would also teach you about computing and how to code and that kind of thing. They're not so common these days. But interestingly enough, just recently I watched a BBC Horizon program. As I was on the flight over to San Francisco to go to TwitchCon, I watched a BBC Horizon program that I forget the exact title, but it was about gamers, people playing games and how it affects them. Like, is it good? Is it bad? And it turns out there's a lot of research being done around this. And interestingly, they're actually using computer games now for old people who are starting to sort of lose their memory a little bit. The concentration levels are not good. They're actually using it, and they're giving them games to play, and it is improving. It's been proven to improve their hand-eye coordination. It's improving their reaction times. It's actually improving their memory. Further research is required, but what we're saying here is that although sometimes games can have a negative press, and that's what makes some parents say, no, you're not playing games at all. Actually, the flip side of this is that games can and do and have been proven to teach you to improve your reaction times, your hand-eye coordination, your motor neuron skills, like all kinds of positive benefits. Obviously, if you have the right kind of games, but nevertheless, you can't just dismiss them and say they're all bad. They are certainly not. Games are a tool. Games are a tool like anything else, and it's all about how you use that tool. So I'm thankful for my parents for allowing me to play video games, because I was hooked. There's no doubt about it. I was hooked, and I was hooked for life, and I have been hooked for life. And here I am making videos and gaming, as I get older, and I hopefully will just continue to do this because I just love games. I love gaming, and I love making videos for you guys. So to answer your question, Butler Hives and Nathan Parks, I let my kids play games. I encourage them. Obviously, when they're younger, you want to be a little bit careful about what kind of age rating games they're playing. You don't want an 8-year-old playing a horror game, because they're just simply going to have nightmares, and it's not good for them. The brain isn't ready for that yet. So you do need to sort of, you can't just let your children do what they like. But equally, to just completely shut the door in the face of gaming is, in my opinion, a mistake. Next question comes from Lion King Gamer, at Lion King Gamer, and he says, Squirrel, will you play Roller Coaster Tycoon World and do a series on it? Well, if you watch the Twitch channel, then you will have been enjoying me playing Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, which is it's a few years old now, but the principles are the same. Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 is effectively the predecessor to Roller Coaster Tycoon World. It's made by the same people, Frontier, who also make Elite Dangerous. And I've been really getting back into it. I played tons of many hours of Roller Coaster Tycoon, Theme Park, Transport Tycoon, all these kind of tycoon-y games. I just love them. I love them to bits. They're awesome. And Roller Coaster Tycoon World just recently had a beta. Wasn't a particularly great beta, if I'm truthful. There were quite a few bugs. There wasn't a huge amount, a lot of stuff was locked, but particularly on the roller coaster construction, there were definitely some bugs. And I think they're currently heading for an early December release date, which is again only a few weeks away. And I'm just not convinced that they're going to hit that date. Or if they do hit that date, then what they release may be somewhat buggy. So I shall reserve judgment. The question was, will I play it and do a series about it? I will play it. I will definitely stream it. Will I do a YouTube series about it? I don't know. Whenever I start to play any game, any simulator, I have to look at it and think to myself, how can I make this work on YouTube? Or how can I make this work on Twitch? What am I going to bring to this? Is this something I can make a series out of on YouTube? Is this something I can perhaps do review videos of, or a first look and leave it at that? I don't always carry on with games. And Roller Coaster Tycoon World may be something that I perhaps do a first look of and then don't make a series about it, or it could be something I do make a series about it. It could be something I just stream. So honestly, Lion King Gamer, I can't answer your question 100% yet, but I will definitely be playing it in some form on one of the channels, either Twitch or YouTube. You're going to see me play it. I love the interaction of Twitch, so it kind of strikes me as an interactive game. But that's not to say that I couldn't just make a sandbox map and construct a world and make a series out of that. That's also entirely doable. So I may do that. Not sure. Next question comes from Full Nuclear Breakfast. His name is Full Nuclear Breakfast on Twitter, and his name is @nukeboy88. Kind of guessing he may be a Fallout fan, possibly. In which case he's probably looking forward to Fallout 4. Please don't pull out on me. Don't you dare, dude. Seriously, don't you dare. Thank you. He says, hi Paul. How important do you think Track IR is for Sims? I.e., should I buy that or use the money to buy DCS modules, OMSI, etc.? Well, I always get a little bit worried when people say to me, should I buy A or should I buy B? Because the question is, unless there's an obvious massive difference between those two things, then the question is not always easy, because it often depends on you as a person and your circumstances and what you're looking for, how much money you've got, disposable income. There's all kinds of factors that come into this. Track IR is reasonably expensive. It's certainly over $100. You can get the Track. I have the Track IR 5 Pro, and the question was, do you think it is? How important do you think it is for Sims? It's not as important as something like a good steering wheel or a good yoke HOTUS type setup if you're flight simming. Whoa, I'm turning left here. Let's pay attention. Just realised that place actually closes on me, which is not a good thing. I'm like driving along here like doopy-doo, not realising the road actually closes. So yeah, we're turning left here. Definitely, obviously with Sims, equipment is a factor in how authentic the experience is. Wow, that car's actually trying to... look at that. That's just genius, that is. I think the only way out of this is... Okay, well, this isn't good, is it? If I move out of his way, then... maybe you'll get a move on. I've caused a problem here, haven't I? I genuinely caused a problem. Next thing that's going to happen is when I make this turn is my trailer's going to go straight into that guy. I am going to have to just edge my way out because... Oh, come on. Seriously. Seriously. You just move. Thank you. You just move. You and your little smart car. Being driven by a guy who's clearly not that smart. I always wondered if people who buy smart cars are really smart or not. Maybe they're compensating for something. I don't know. But, you know, Track IR is one of those things, I would say, is probably a third layer down. Like, your first layer is getting your sim, getting the software, maybe getting any essential add-ons or, you know, flight sim, getting your aircraft that you want to fly, that kind of thing. You know, your Rex textures. Second line down from that is going to be buying the equipment, so it's going to be buying a steering wheel or buying a stick, that kind of thing, to make it so that you've got proper control input of your simulator. They're definitely essential purchases. Next level down from that is kind of nice to haves. Track IR is definitely in the nice to have category, I would say. Okay, we'll have to drop to 8th. For me now, it's in Eurotruck, because I'm so used to looking around like this, very naturally, if I turn Track IR off, I really, really miss it. I really miss it. But if you've never had it, then you don't miss it. That's the difference. That's why it's not an essential add-on, but it does really bring something good to the party once you have it. So I would say it's not, you know, it's not massively important to some other stuff, but once you get there, you should definitely consider getting one. There are cheaper alternatives than just Track IR. There are other alternatives, but Track IR certainly has a very, very good built-in game support. There's a lot of games that support it natively, and Eurotruck is one of them. Also, games tend to support either Track IR now or Oculus Rift. Oculus Rift is not something that, you know, I can particularly use because I'm a streamer and a YouTuber, and I need to be able to see my screens and that kind of thing. But, you know, an Oculus Rift is a personal experience, where with Track IR, I can stream and make videos and still use it. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Full nuclear breakfast. I hope you... I normally just have Weetabix for breakfast, or maybe a bit of toast, but I definitely don't go nuclear on my breakfast. Next question comes in from Thomas Donkin, at ThomasDonkin1. He says, Paul, what advice would you give to someone wanting to start playing simulation games? What tech should I use, etc.? Well, I kind of just covered that in my previous question to some extent, in that, you know, like I say, you should get the software, get the essentials first, the kind of thing that you're trying to play. Can I squeeze down the side of this motorbike? I think I can. You're gonna fall over on that, girl. You must be cold. That is not frosty weather biking equipment. Retarder activated. I think I just pressed the wrong button there. Oh, nice. I have no idea where you just came from, Mr. BMW. We'll just kind of leave you at the side there. I have noticed that the AI has become somewhat more aggressive these days. I'm seeing it a lot, particularly when I'm streaming it. It tends to just ignore what you're doing and pull out on you and ram into you. It's kind of weird. I don't know what's going on. It used to be too permissive, too passive, and let you just pull out. Now it just seems to have gone the other way somehow. I don't know. Maybe you've not seen that, but I certainly have. So yeah, I kind of covered that in my previous question, in the, you know, the kind of order that you should try and get things. Look at that! Look at the sun! Look at the sky! Absolutely fantastic. So I hope I've already covered that one, Thomas Donkin, in terms of what tech you need. But, you know, you can't start off with everything. I certainly did not. When I started playing Eurotruck, I dug out my joystick that I'd not used for 5 years. I dug that out of the attic, and I started to use that. I used that for quite a period of time, a number of weeks actually. I was using that before I eventually went to a steering wheel. It's just playing simulation games. You have to accept that, unlike other games, with other games, right, like take shooters or whatever, the expense of a shooter is you buy a shooter, you play it, you might buy the DLC packs, you play them, then you buy another shooter game, and you keep moving on. Like next year, the next shooter version might be out, cough, Call of Duty, and you just kind of spend your money that way. With Sims, You kind of buy the base game, or the base simulation. Some people argue it's not a game, whatever. You buy the base software, there you go, and you then look to expand it with add-ons, with mods, and you build it up that way. And your expense comes in pretty much how far you want to go. There are some people that will spend, you know, they'll get a flight simulation going, and they'll spend 30 grand. They'll spend £30,000 and build the inside, you know, a replica cockpit of an Airbus A320 or a 737. That's what they do. They want to get as close to reality as they possibly can, and they are prepared to throw their disposable income at it. And you may think it's kind of crazy, but in a way it's no different to people who have, you know, model railways. Yeah, there are people. My parents were buying a house many years ago, and I remember we went to look at this house, and we went up the staircase into the attic, and the entire attic was full on the most insane, complicated railway you've ever seen. I don't know how much he spent, but you're looking at tens of thousands easily, not to mention the hours he put into it. Because at the end of the day, when, you know, a simulator is often more than just a game. It's actually a hobby. It's almost a way of life. It's what people love to do. It's a passion. Simulators can be a passion, and therefore there is often no limit to how much money they're willing to spend beyond what they're able to. I'm not really sure what question we're answering, but I hope that answered your question. Yeah, what tech should I use? Basically, look at how much money you've got and how far you want to go. Be wary of playing too many different sims because they will eat into your wallet. There's no doubt about that. Hope that answers your question, Thomas. Next question comes from Gidivan, I can't even say your name, at Gidvic. That'll do. Is it possible that This May Contain Nuts will be weekly? Well, as I've kind of hinted at previously, that is mostly down to you guys, not me. How far have we got to go on this, by the way? 177 k's. Look at that skyline. It's absolutely beautiful. I need to get a move on here. We're going to be late. As long as you guys can keep the questions coming, then I can potentially do it every week. If the questions dry out, then we're going to run out of things to talk about, and the series will pretty much end. So look at the kind of questions that are being asked and the kind of things that I've answered, and you'll kind of get a feel for what I might go for and what I might not go for. I've even, despite me saying in an episode like the first episode, don't ask technical support questions, people still do. They still say to me, you know, in a TMCN question, they'll say, Squirrel, why can't I get ProMod to work? And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not technical support, and secondly, that is not going to get picked as a question for TMCN ever, is it? I'm not going to talk about that, really, without sounding rude. Wow, it has gone night time. There's short daylight hours that are happening here because we're in the frosty mod. We sort of left early morning, I think it's about 10 AM, something like that, and it has already gone dark. Because, you know, winter's coming, Jon Snow, winter's coming. Next question from Mr. Simon Cornwall. Uh-oh, our customer expects delivery. I've been driving far too slowly whilst talking. That's the real problem here. And now I am going to be late delivering this. Speed limit of 80. Okay, well, we're kind of breaking that right now. Mr. Simon Cornwall, which almost sounds like Simon Cowell. Hey Paul, what makes you like sim games? What makes me like sim games? Blimey. I think if I was to cast my mind back and, you know, look at the games I used to play when I got a ZX Spectrum, I would start off with the platform games. It was all about what was available. But when I got my Atari ST, I obviously had a much more power. I started to play flight simulators and driving simulators. We had things like Jeff Crammond's Formula 1, which was, you know, that came a bit later, but that was like a definitive Formula 1 game of its time. We also had a game called Digital Combat Simulation, was one of them, and there's another one I think called Falcon or something like that. And we're only talking wireframe graphics, but that was the first time I ever sat down and properly experienced flight simulation. And it was during, while I had an Atari ST, and I had a joystick, I had wireframe graphics, and it was beautiful. I mean, the runway was pretty much a rectangle that you could see in the horizon, and landing was not easy. But that's where I learned to flight sim. And so it was with racing. I learned to drive, learned to race on computers. Even back to the Atari consoles, they had kind of racing games. Simulation to me is because there's only one of you. You can't do everything in life. And I often think to myself, oh, what would it be like to actually, fly an Airbus? Or what would it be like to go Mach 2 in a jet fighter? What would it be like to drive a tank? Or go off-road in a truck? These are the kind of things I want to experience, like driving a train. I'm never going to get to drive a train in my lifetime because I've chose to do something else entirely with my life. But the only way I can realistically experience that is to play like a train simulator. And in order to do that, I need to learn about how trains work, how signalling works, how train controls work, wheel slippage, all this kind of stuff. And it kind of fits in with my brain that loves science, and it loves documentaries. I love to watch the Discovery Channel documentaries. I even love programs like How It's Made, because I'm just curious, I guess. I just like to know how stuff is put together, how it works, how you do things. I've always had that kind of curious brain, and I always want to try stuff. And that's where simulators come in, and I think that's where my passion for simulators comes in. I hope that answers your question. It's to do with the way my brain works, ultimately. I just love simulation, and I love sim games. And it's no surprise that my channel's pretty much built around that. So, thank you for the question, Mr. Simon Cornwall. I hope that answers it. And he actually then asked another one, so I'm going to do that one too. You mentioned in a previous Train Sim vid you were from Coventry. Where else have you lived? I'm not from Coventry. Let me just clear that one up. I was actually born in St Helens. St Helens in Lancashire, and I think St Helens is now in Merseyside, but back then it was in Lancashire. And I was born in St Helens, and I spent my early years in St Helens. I then lived in Billinge, which is a little bit outside. I then moved back to St Helens in a place called Eccleston, and lived there until I was about so I was 18 actually, because then I went to university. I went to Sheffield University. Sheffield's in Yorkshire, over the Pennines a bit, and I spent a few years at Sheffield University. When during the university years, I spent a year out working at IBM on a kind of industrial university placement, and that was down at IBM in Warwick. I met some people, met a guy who owned his own business, and he was based in Coventry. And so when I finished university, I went back and worked for him in Coventry. I lived in Leamington Spa, Warwick, and Coventry, all those places. And I lived there for a while, and then myself and my was it my girlfriend or my wife at that point? I think my girlfriend. We moved down to Essex. I got a job in London. And basically, to cut a long story short, we needed some more money because we had a child, and I wanted to get more work. I just can't believe the graphics. Look at the state of them, like midnight blue. Wanted to get more work. There was more work in IT in London, and so I needed to live around London. The place where I worked, I met a guy, and he said, "Oh, I live out in Essex. We can just get the tube in, and it's really simple." And that's pretty much how I ended up in Essex. I was going to live in Epping, but the rental houses in Epping at the time were a bit expensive, and the ones that I could afford were not very good. So I ended up moving to Harlow. I rented a house in Harlow, eventually bought a house in Harlow, and as my kids got older, we sort of looked at secondary schools and stuff and decided that we wanted them to go into a Chelmsford secondary school. So I then moved over to Chelmsford in Essex, and that's where I am currently. So I kind of bounced my way around the country a little bit. I worked my way down. I went across to Sheffield, then kind of came down to Warwick and Coventry, then ultimately went down to Harlow and Chelmsford and Essex. So they're the counties that I've lived in. They're the places that I've lived in. I need to get in that lane. I hope that guy's going to let me over. He probably won't. He is doing. think I forced his hand. So that's where the Coventry aspect came from. I'm not from Coventry, I've just lived in Coventry. Okay, for some reason we're going very slowly up this hill. Next question was from Adam Henbury at Incredulousness. He says, hey Paul, have you ever thought about being a professional truck driver? I haven't, no. In the same way I haven't thought about being a professional train driver. I have thought about being a professional pilot. I did think about that. I made a decision back in my teenage years about whether I'd want to go for being a pilot or whether I would want to go into IT. And as much as I love flight, I decided to go IT because I decided there was a bigger future in that. You know, whether or not that came to pass, I think it probably did. IT is pretty massive. I kind of hoped to get into 3D graphics at the time and possibly even gaming, but that never particularly happened. So, no, I'd not really thought about being a truck driver. Like I say, trucking is something I love doing, but it's just the way my life worked out. It's not really something... I enjoy doing this. I enjoy trucking. I love driving trucks. I love machinery in general. The bigger the machinery, the more I enjoy it, you know? I would love to drive those massive quarry machines that they have. I'd really have a blast in a simulation in that. But equally, it wouldn't be something that I'd think, oh, I want to go and do that for real. Quite happy to do it on a sim. Hope that answers your question, sir. Let me take a left turn here. What I love about the lighting at this time of... in this kind of frosty mod here is... look, you see that? He's going to pull out on me, I reckon. I've seen those guys hit me, but it never really goes dark. Because the floor is white and the sky is dark blue and everything's just reflecting everywhere, it never really properly goes dark. You can always see where you're going, even at night. What time of day is it right now? It's 8:30 at night, so it's been dark a few hours. And that's the other thing the Frosty mod does. It kind of interferes not just with the weather and the environment, but the daylight hours and the amount of daylight you get and the colour. Quite a nice mod. Anyway, we are almost here, so let me get in the right gear. That is going to be the last question. I hope you've enjoyed the questions that I've answered in This May Contain Nuts. I hope we're going to keep this series going, guys, so please check out that video description. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and ask you a question on Twitter, but please don't mention me because it'll fill up my timeline. You don't need to direct the tweet at me, you just need to direct it at the hashtag. I just basically pick it up later when I'm looking. That's all you need to do. Right, let's get this thing reversed into here. DHL delivery. Check we've gone off space on that side. Quite a big yard, this. Spin it the other way a bit. There we go. No problemo. How did we do? Late. That's too much nattering. That's what makes you late. Late penalty. Look at that. That's harsh. Took 2 grand and 46 XP. Still got 646. So that's absolutely fine. Slap it into gear. Pull up over here. Put the brakes on. Engine off. And that is another episode of This May Contain Nuts. Hope you enjoyed that. Please give me a like if you did. Leave your comments. Please don't ask questions in the comments though. If you want to ask me a question for another episode, see the video description. You just need to tweet the question to hashtag TMCN. That's it from me. Until the next video, guys. Take care. Happy trucking.